So good morning. You all look very serious. Were you concerned about the messaging from Trend Micro? I hope I can illustrate a few ways of how Juniper also can address these issues. Do you have the clicker? Yeah, thank you. So I come from Juniper. As you know, Juniper is one of the contenders, the innovators in this business, in networking. We have Pradip, our founder, on the page here. And our key mission is to disrupt the traditional way of building networks and try to introduce new thinking, a new logic of how you build up your corporate networks. A few words about us as a company. We are now a 4.5 billion company. We are present all around the world. And some of our solutions have gained a lot of attention, where we are number one in high-end firewalls. We are number two in core routing, SP routing, and that's where we come from traditionally, working with service providers. And also since 3 years back, we're now present in the switching space. We didn't go out to buy a switching company. As you'll see on the slide here, we have three principles of how we operate. So we decided to design our own switching series, the EX series. And in the 3 years we've been on the market, we've come to number 3 position. Cisco is number 1, as you know, around 70% market share. Then you have HP, and then we have Juniper. Far behind, but we're still number 3, and we're advancing. I want to highlight this one. We are very strong in the stock exchanges. And the reason I want you to remember this is that the type of transactions the business they do, which is low latency, real time, that's where Juniper really excels. So think about trading companies, social networks. We have the points of presence for Google, for example. We are running Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, stock exchanges. So as soon as you hear the words low latency, real-time transactions, think Juniper. And for the topic of this conference around security, I'm going to share with you an example around mobile security and mobility. And we're very strong already. Verizon, for example, has standardized on the Juniper solution for this to secure their mobile traffic. So we run our business based on 3 pillars. And I would say that we're still very much an innovation company. We're around 9,000 people worldwide and heavy investments in R&D. And our approach is to build our own silicon, meaning the IC circuits, integrated circuits that we run. We build it, design it ourselves to make sure we can optimize the hardware for the software we write. We put that into systems, and then we integrate it with software. And one of our strengths here is that we run one operating system, UNOS. So it doesn't matter if you buy our switching, our routing, our wireless, our security, we run UNOS. And that's the vision where we're heading. When we do acquisitions, we start transforming it into a UNOS platform as well. And this is a great benefit for your operation of the network. So, moving over to security, the topic of the day. When we talk to our customers, we see 3 main trends. It's very much about employee productivity and employee satisfaction. That's a big concern today, to make sure you capture the talent and you keep them in the organization. The second one is around business agility. Everything moves faster, and the company has to move fast with it. And finally, it's around the cost efficiency. When it comes to the first point, the biggest trend and one of the biggest headaches we see today is around bring your own device. BYOD, bring your own device, which is basically the times when the company could dictate that as an employee here, you get this phone, basta. It's over. It doesn't work like that. Most people today want to have the phone they're used to working with. And they don't want to limit themselves to one device, typically. They may have a corporate phone, they have a private phone, they have an iPad, and they start changing it, mixing it, and they bring it into your network. How do you secure that? The second trend is around business agility, and it's very important for you as a company to be in the forefront and think about new platforms and new services in order to respond to market demands. And all this taken together, you have to consolidate. The days are over when you can increase capacity by increasing the number of boxes you have in your network. You need to consolidate, simplify. So this leads to a couple of investment areas where we are very active now. In the bring your own device, everything is about mobility. It's different platforms, different locations, different type of access you require from different type of sources across both the corporate network and the public network. It's around the cloud. 10micro talked a lot about that. And it's about, the infrastructure consolidation. That you need to be able to have an overview of the entire network and all the entry points to the network, and also control the exits of information. Do you recognize this? When you talk to the partners here, when you talk to your clients, do you see projects in these three areas? And as a client, do you share the concerns? Is it relevant, these topics, to your everyday life? Some careful nodding. So let's talk a bit about security. 10micro did a great job in presenting the general situation out there. I think an important thing is that the attacker have changed the way they work, and they changed the reasons they work. Back when Kevin Mitnick, the guy who was jailed for fraud in the early days of hacking, he did it because he was curious, and he did it because he wanted notoriety. He wanted fame in the community. Today, it's about profitability. It's organized crime employing the brightest minds to hack your networks to profit from it. And it also used to be attacking gov and com, large corporations and governments, in order to, first of all, test your skills. Can I break into, FBI? Can I break into whoever? Pretty cool if I could. And then going to the corporations, the .coms. Now, they're breaking into me and you. Because a lot of the companies have very strong defense mechanisms. So instead of trying to go through the firewalls to get into your network, they check LinkedIn and find the finance director of the company. Maybe they check the Facebook profile to see in which area is he roaming. Maybe they can plant a virus in his favorite internet cafe, get into his iPad, and when he brings it to the corporate network, they're in. It's much easier to go to the individual than to go through the company firewall. Secondly, the threats. You recognize this, and 10micro also talked about the APT, Advanced Persistency Threats, which is based on social engineering. So like I said, focus on the individual. Try to get one individual who does the human error. That's all you need to get into the network. Much easier than trying to compromise technology security. And also, as I mentioned, the targets. Going through the devices and going through the cloud services. There are much more entry points, both on the human side and the technology side. So let's look at an example of how it could work. You're sitting at your internet cafe, checking your emails, and a friend of yours sends you an email with a really cool link. You click on the link, and it's routing you to a site that can infect your device. You're still in your private device. No big deal. The problem is that after that, you go into the corporate network, and you connect your private device through the wireless LAN, and you access corporate information, where the hacker can then, through your device, connect to your corporate data. And there's a number of issues here. First of all, there's no intelligence to detect the malware. Issue number one. It's also difficult then to connect the end device from the cloud-based threats. So your application is sending you to somewhere in the cloud, sending back some information that allows the hacker to take control of your device. You can't really inspect the content of the network. and you can't really control who is accessing which data. And this is not, an uncommon situation. This is happening now. So what you need to do is you need to have a new approach to security. So when it comes to bring your own device, about the new platforms and services, and about consolidation, you must make sure that you have very broad coverage. You can't do sort of single point security solutions anymore. Marco talked about the perimeter security. It doesn't work anymore. You have to go way beyond that. Broad coverage on the different devices. You need flexible deployment. With increased number of users, multiple users with multiple devices, and also multiple locations and people roaming between different ways of accessing the network. You must have a flexible deployment. And you must be able to make security decisions based on the device type and the location. Maybe you can access your corporate finance data when you are at home and in the office, but you can't from the internet cafe. That's the kind of decisions you need to make. Where do you allow your employees to access the data? Juniper, we can do this today. So let's talk a little bit about what we have done in security and sort of our thought process and where we're heading going forward. What we did in 2011, we have a suite called App Secure, which is basically a suite of applications or components where we can implement security on all devices and in different types. So application denial of service, mitigation, application tracking, etc., etc. I'll just highlight a few of them here. Virtual gateway introduction. This is an exciting one because, as you heard in the previous presentation, virtualization is a big thing. And as they correctly pointed out, one big issue is the traffic that flows between virtual machines. So at Juniper, we have a virtual gateway, which is sitting behind the hypervisor, securing the traffic between the virtual machines. And the beauty of the solution is that it's integrated with the physical hardware. So the security policies that you implement on your SRX, the Juniper firewall, can automatically be shared and implemented on the virtual gateway. So you don't have a separate management dilemma in order to implement those. We've added the Pulse Mobile Security Suite. Simplified, it's basically, if you recognize, or if you're familiar with the BlackBerry solutions around remote wipe and logging of activity and so on, we can now take that to any device, which helps you to secure all the end-user devices. And where are we heading next? We're launching a new management tool for our security solutions, security design. We're launching the virtual gateway, also for Linux platforms, the kernel virtual machine. Everything is very much VMware today, but we see a need for alternatives. And we're also launching a virtual SRX. SRX is basically our firewall solutions, basically a router with a firewall capability. We're launching that as a virtual machine as well, which allows you to run it on a server. So where we're going is really about, as I said, we're an innovation company. We're trying to look ahead and develop the next generation type of security services. Very heavily focused on cloud security. And if I may go out on a tangent here, you may have heard of QFabric, which is Juniper's solution for data centers. QFabric is basically taking our approach about rethinking the model of how to build networks, where we collapse the classic 3 tiers of a data center into a single hop, 1 tier only. If you haven't heard of it, I recommend you to check our site and check QFabric. It's a very interesting concept, and we are starting to roll it out now. We have the first implementations coming up. And then about investing in security intelligence. So what we're saying is basically security must be considered throughout your entire network. All the way from the service providers, how you run your cloud services, through your corporate network, how you build your data center and how secure the virtual machines, over to your mobile devices, which devices they bring into the network. And of course, you need to have a security policy trying to mitigate the human factor and how they access information and how gullible they are when they get a phone call asking them to share a file or even the password has happened. So we have solutions in these areas today. When it comes to the bring your own device, the mobility, we have protection across all the points where you need security. I mentioned the UNOS Pulse. If you have iPhone or an Android device, you can go to the App Store and check it out. Just UNOS Pulse, and you'll have a glimpse of the client. You can't activate it without your corporate license there, but it'll give you a feel for it, which would allow your corporation to track the device, remote wipe, log all the activity and everything. And you can implement on your iPad or your laptop or everywhere. And then we have our, STRM for logging, universal access control, SRX and MAG. SRX is the firewall, MAG is the next generation SSL access. On the cloud, virtual gateway, keep that in mind. And keep in mind the functionality of sharing policies across physical and virtual devices, which is very sweet. And around cost efficiency. So if we go back to our example here of the user, with the UNOS Pulse and the Juniper security solutions implemented, first of all, we can detect malware on the end of the device. It's secured through a UNOS Pulse. Secondly, depending on the device type and the user location, we can make decisions about can this user access corporate information or not. And we can then enable client traffic directed to the cloud. And we can look into the traffic and detect and remove malware and threats. And of course, we can coordinate these activities across the entire network. Consistent policy management, one operating system, etc. That's really all I wanted to talk about. A high-level overview of who is Juniper and what we can provide. Any questions from you?